most stuff. But for me, I have to do it in the context of what I do. So to me, it's a tool that enhances what I already do. And of course, I'm a chiropractor, so I'll talk a little bit about that. But I don't know if you guys, I know Mary saw it. If anybody else saw the thing that I posted online, it was something written by a mentor of mine I thought was really good. I won't read the whole thing, but I want to read a little bit of it because it really puts things in perspective. Since the theme more or less is cancer, but overall, as we're discussing, it's well-being and how to have a life and a lifestyle that promotes health and enjoy lifelong wellness. So, but regarding breasts, you have Angelina and you have Suzanne Summers, right? So Angelina Jolie had her healthy breasts removed because her MDs told her she carried a gene that increased her chances of getting breast cancer, and it was a big news story. You guys heard about it, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. The media, many MDs, and those in the cancer industry called her decision heroic. Certainly, the companies that make genetic testing equipment have done very, very well. And yet, when another big star, Suzanne Summers, was told that she had breast cancer, she refused chemotherapy and medical mutilation. And the MDs in the media, they didn't call her heroic, they called her crazy. She was attacked by the American Cancer Society. So it's a tale of two women, and 4, 3, and now 2 breasts. At her doctor's suggestion, Ms. Jolie underwent a bizarre surgical procedure and had healthy breasts removed on the chance that they'd get sick. Suzanne Summers decided to defy her doctor's orders. They told her, unless you do chemo, you're going to die, and she used natural methods. The result, Ms. Summers still has her breasts and no breast cancer, and interestingly, the doctors that cured her, in addition to enduring personal ridicule, are referred to as quacks. And what will happen to Ms. Jolie? No one knows the long-term effects of the surgery. Will she decide to have her ovaries or uterus or cervix removed at a future date to prevent those kind of cancers? What's wrong with this picture? Let's step back a bit and see the forest for the trees, with tens of thousands of people walking for the cure, donating to Alex's lemonade stand, giving to Susan G. Komen for the cure, and so many billions of tax dollars poured into the war on cancer. Is this the best medical science could come up with? Cut off healthy organs. Certainly cutting off breasts would prevent breast cancer. Cutting off your head would prevent headaches. It's been reported that one guy even had his healthy prostate cut out so as to avoid prostate cancer. Or maybe he was just trying to attract Angelina's attention. Modern medicine is not science, it's an industry using the trappings of science. At its core, it's a business. In many ways, it represents science as much as Jim Jones's church represents religion, right? The Kool-Aid people, right? True science wouldn't ignore approaches to cancer or any other disease that are more effective, safer, and far less costly. So there's this whole cancer gene, right? That's the thing they're talking about. Angelina Jolie's mother died of breast cancer, and obviously that created fear for her about it. And so her decision to do this came from a place of fear, not necessarily of reason.
I believe it was ovarian that she died of, ovarian cancer. It wasn't even breast cancer.
Really?
Yeah, it was ovarian, I'm pretty sure.
Well, the question though, I mean, genetically, was she predisposed to cancer? Does a certain gene cause cancer? And the answer is obviously not, because there's millions of women that are carrying around those same genes and will never get breast cancer. 100 years ago, breast cancer was relatively rare. Where were the breast cancer genes, right? I mean, so the genes don't just appear. It's impossible. They don't magically appear and disappear. It's scientifically impossible to have a genetic epidemic. Cancer is not a genetic disease. It's a disease of toxicity. Genes are affected by, can be turned on and off by environmental factors such as diet, toxins, and stress. Genetic mutations alone cannot cause cancer. They've done research where they transplanted a nucleus of a cancer cell that had cancer mutilation into a normal cell, and the normal cell remained normal. The genetic material alone did not produce cancer cells, and this is, I have the reference here for this. This is, well documented. If you take a normal cancer cell nucleus and transplant this normal nucleus into a cancerous cell, those cells will form tumors. There's a reference for that as well. But it's the genes, it's not the environment. And the secret, the little secret here, or one of many secrets, that most cancer patients don't realize this, but by the time a tumor has been discovered, it's at least 10 years old. So it's been there. But all of a sudden there's all this pressure, like, oh my God, you have to do something now, and people are scared, and that's, you know, rightfully so. But the thing is, it's a very slow-growing disease in most cases, unless that tumor is pressing on something like the common bile duct or a vital organ or the brain itself. Most people can live with cancer for decades before they die. Most people die with and not from cancer. It's a slow-growing disease. There's a lot of pressure to make a decision, but on average it's been going on for at least 10 years before it's discovered, and probably go on for another 10, 15, or 20 years before it kills them. That's a quote from John McDougall, MD, who wrote a book called Healing Cancer from Inside Out. So that's the thing. So there's a lot more to it than, you know, it's not bad luck. You weren't struck down. It's something that you know, it happens. It's a response to the stress in our lives, and so that's where I'm going to emphasize. You know, that's how chiropractic can help. That's how we're going to talk about the MindFit system. That's how that can help. So before we do that, I'll tell you, you know, what do chiropractors do, because that's kind of the problem that plagues me on a daily basis. Is everybody comes in with sort of their own idea of what chiropractors do, and it's usually, you know, a little bit okay, but not. They don't have the whole story, right? I mean, and then there's many more people that don't even come in because they don't understand what we do, right? So, so you have the body. We have a passive system, bones and joints, and for a lot of people, that's chiropractic kind of begins and ends there. Even for a lot of chiropractors, they practice like that. They you know, it's all about bones and joints and moving things. But these bones and joints do nothing on their own. They provide a structure, they're attachment points for the muscles and the potential for movement, but they don't act independently. Then you have that's the passive system. You have the active system, which would be the muscles. And the active system is a lot. Muscles are a lot. And even things that you might not normally think of, like excretion, respiration, circulation, elimination, all those things are done with muscles as well. But again, it's just the muscles, right? They don't move by themselves. And you know, and one of the banes of my existence is, you know, people come in and they, Doc, I think I just pulled a muscle. I just got this knot. You know, I got this thing. You just rub it. You know, and it's like, well, you know, that's like going to Starbucks and ordering black coffee. You know, like you're missing out on what we really do here. And the control system, that would be the system that I, as a chiropractor, is most concerned about, and that also the system that chiropractic was founded on. And we're talking about the nervous system. It's the central organizing authority. It controls function. It defends the functions. It makes sure all the parts are working together and functioning properly. Recovery, healing, and metabolism are all controlled by the nervous system. And through learned experiences, which are stored with emotional triggers, we have neural patterns. And so what I mean by neural patterns, I mean it's the thoughts that you think, it's the things that happen in your brain, but it also happens in the body. And so the spine is, and this is, I'm going to quote Dr. Roger Sperry, who's a Nobel Prize winner. He said the spine is the motor that drives the brain. So it's all connected. So a lot of times in our culture, I think we're taught sort of this model of how things work, that the mind and the body are separate, right? And it's not. It's for one. I don't know how else to say it than that. I mean, everything drives everything else. The spine is the motor that drives the brain. 90% of the stimulation and nutrition to the brain is generated by the movement of the spine. So if you want to think of your body, your spine, and why the spine? Well, because you got a lot of movable parts there. And so there's a lot of not only support and structure that the spine gives us, but also a lot of sensory input to the nervous system through the spine and the joints and the muscles that support it, that tell us where we are and what we're doing, right? So 90% of stimulation and nutrition in the brain is generated by the movement of the spine. Only 10% of the brain's energy goes into thinking, metabolism, immunity, and healing. So that's a lot, right? 90%. So to put it in perspective, if your brain is out of balance, your body's out of balance. If your body's out of balance, your brain's out of balance, because it's the same, right? We have a simple test that we do. We have several tests we do in our evaluation, but one of the ones that always seems to, people are like, oh, why didn't anybody ever do that before? It makes so much sense. Is we have two scales on the floor. they're pretty much bathroom scales, only because I bought them from a medical supplier. They cost $150 each, but I've looked at them very closely. I can't tell exactly what makes them different than the bathroom scales at Bed Bath & Beyond, but I paid for them. But at any rate, if you're carrying more weight on one side than the other, oh, that's because you're out of balance. Your brain's out of balance and your body's out of balance. There's messages that go from your toes and your feet and your heels and your knees and your hips and all the muscles to support them, and the spine itself, that have to do with where we are in space. And so if those messages are not communicated properly, or there's an imbalance in the function of the brain or the body, it's going to show up. That's a very simple test. And people have said, and I believe this, that you could tell more by looking at somebody's posture and how they carry themselves and how they're balanced than you can with all the tests that everybody's worried about, right? Everybody's worried about their cholesterol and all these other things, which, I won't go off on that tangent, but I think we have better things to worry about than that, So Dr. Sperry, he was an extremely well-respected, world-class neuroscientist. He gets it. He gets us what we do as chiropractors. He demonstrated that 90% of the brain's energy goes into processing and maintaining the body's relationship with gravity. So when your brain is balanced, your body will follow, and vice versa. Conversely, when your brain is out of balance, the body will become imbalanced as well. All forms of stress cause our brains to become imbalanced, and this is the cause of all our illness, disease, and behavioral challenges. National Institutes of Health tell us that 90% of all illness is related to stress. I think it's far closer to 100%. Actually, Dr. Porter, the inventor of MindFit, I heard him say it was 97%. I'm not sure where he got that figure. But I mean, the reality is, if you think about all the reasons people might go to a healthcare provider of any kind, it's stress of some kind, right? Like if we step out here and get hit by a car and go to the hospital, that's stressful. It's a form of stress, right? There's three types of stress, and that's another thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. Like when they think of the chiropractor, they think of aches and pains, and I bent over and I picked something up and my back went out, but that's physical stress, and there's a lot of it. To stand on a perfectly flat floor, hard flat surface. There is no surface like this in nature. But most of us spend a lot of time on a floor just like this one. Fluorescent lights, not natural source of light for us, and certainly people that anymore everybody's tied to a computer for their work, and people ask about ergonomics for that. Well, there is no proper way to sit at a desk in front of a computer screen for the majority of your day. We weren't designed for that. So we're taking a creature, us, that was designed for a planet that didn't have all that stuff, right? But now it does, but we're still the same. There hasn't been enough time elapsed for that to make any changes to us where, maybe in the future we'll be born with chairs on our butts or something to accommodate for that. So that would be physical stress would be one type, and there's a lot of it. Chemical stress, huge. And this is something that, I know you guys understand, but I think a lot of people take for granted. And I know they do because I've seen them feed their kids. It's horrendous what's going on out there. And just to kind of give you an example that I often give, we get up in the morning and we go into that bathroom and turn on a hot shower, get it nice and hot, and I get in there and it's all nice and steamy and warm. It feels great, right? But there's chlorine in that water if you live in town, and when you heat it up and you get that steam comes out, that's chlorine gas, right? It's a neurotoxin. It's not enough to kill you, but your body has to process it, has to deal with it, right? And then you come out and you brush your teeth, right? It says right in the tube, do not swallow. Why? It's poison, right? There's a poison control center number on there. You put on some deodorant, right? Some aluminum salts, and it's absorbed into your skin. That's a neurotoxin associated with things like Alzheimer's and other forms of brain degeneration. Then if you come out of there and you put a Pop-Tart in the toaster, God knows what's in that, right? But people eat that. So it'll still be here when we're gone. If you don't eat it, it's going to be the same. So, so we've been awake for 5 minutes and we've assaulted our nervous system with chemical stress that whole time, and then it only gets worse. I could go on with this, but you get the idea, right? And then mentally, and that we're going to spend some time with that today. But basically, our emotions, and if you remember what I said earlier, these neural patterns that we develop they're there to help us, right? So if we're trying to learn how to swing a golf club, for example, what do? You have somebody show you how to swing a golf club, and you practice and you practice and practice till you get dialed in, and you have what people call muscle memory, and it's not really muscle memory, it's the nervous system that remembers it, but we're designed to learn these tasks and be able to do them, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes for you, it becomes ingrained. You develop these neural patterns that allow us to do it. It makes it second nature. I mean, you think about the first time you drive a car, right? Which isn't a natural thing, but it becomes a natural thing for us. But the first time you do it, like, you can't even turn the radio on, right? Because you're concentrating. Like, you don't want, like, the radio is distraction, and you're thinking about, you know, when do I turn my turn signal on, and do I look both ways, and, you know, parallel parking and all that fun stuff that we all have to learn how to do. And then, you know, in a very short time, people drive around and they're eating a cheeseburger and texting at the same time, and they still get where they're going, and they don't, when they show up, they don't remember how they got there. It just happened, right? They got in the car, they turned it on, and then they got out of the car where they were going, and it's that natural. Well, that's our nervous system working for us. It's that neural processing that happens. But we can also learn to be sick, unfortunately. You know, we learn literally to be stressed, and that, you know, repetition over time, we get really, really good at it, and it becomes our way, and we get different kind of emotions and thoughts associated with that, and so you don't even have to really be, you know, in that stressful event to still be feeling the stress from it. You just have to think about that stressful event, right? Or you know, if I said to you right now, like, you know, imagine I had a lemon here, and we cut into that lemon, and we, you know, and you know, you slice into it, and you get the little spray of juice, and you can smell it, and you put it in your mouth, and, you know, you pucker up, right? See, you made a face. So I knew somebody would, because you didn't have to eat the lemon, but you just experienced it a little bit, right? And so that's how it works. And so mental and emotional stress is huge, and certainly when you're not well, it's even more of an issue. But I mean, but that's how we got there too. I mean, that's everybody that's experiencing anything. We're all at basically the culmination of all those experiences. And so the better we can learn to process these things, and the better we can learn to break those bad patterns that have developed, the healthier we are. And that's how chiropractic works. And so there's all indicators document that as a result of this intense, nonstop stress, we are in the early stages of the worst epidemic of all time, the neurological epidemic. If you look around, speak with people, listen or read the news, you discover that ever-growing lists of people are suffering from Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism, insomnia, lupus, MS, acid reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, anxiety, migraines, depression, etc., 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 right? It's brain stress. The nervous system is just, it's reached you're on your last nerve, right? So prolonged stress without the normal and natural relaxation response causes a sympathetic parasympathetic imbalance. So you have your autonomic nervous system. Autonomic just means automatic, and it's there, it's running the show for us all the time. So we don't, while we're all sitting here, we're not thinking heartbeat, heartbeat, heartbeat. It's happening, right? And it's good, because I would forget, right? So and so that parasympathetic sympathetic balance, that's critical though to how our body functions. And so parasympathetic is if we put that over here, right? This would be you're sleeping. When you're all the way at this end of the thermostat, parasympathetic, sympathetic. Okay, so this would be rest, recovery, regeneration. The growth and repair happens over here, and we need growth and repair. Our cells are constantly turning over in our bodies, right? So you're always replacing cells, growth and repair, and you're repairing things that have gotten worn down during the day. So that would be one end of the spectrum. Over at the far other side of the spectrum, you have fight or flight, right? And fight or flight is like, you know, there's a saber-toothed tiger chasing us, right? And so we run really fast, or we fight for our lives, or whatever we have to do. Fight or flight, everybody recognizes it. You know, it's your heart's beating faster, your blood pressure is elevated, your muscles are tense, your gaze is narrowed. You're not digesting lunch at this point, because we have better things to do than digest lunch right now, right? Because there's a saber-toothed tiger, you know, so we'll just save that for later. And all the blood flow is going to those muscles, and you know, the clammy hands and all that. Well, it sounds like a lot of people's day, right? I mean, people spend a lot of time in that state. And if we took, so if I'm running, I'm fleeing from the wild animals, right? And then they pluck me out and put me in a doctor's office. And he takes my blood pressure and he says, well, geez, that doesn't look good. We better medicate that. Or, you're having digestive problems? Well, we have medicine for that. You seem a little anxious. Maybe we should give you something for that, right? And et cetera, et cetera. I mean, most of the things that people are going to the doctor for is because they're stuck in this fight or flight syndrome, right? And we learn, develop those neural patterns. There we are. Our body gets really, really good at it. They suspect that ultimately, the normal amount that somebody would actually hit fight or flight response in a more primitive society would be maybe a couple times a month. Like, it's not something that, right? But it's there and we need it. It serves a purpose. But we're there every single day, and so that's the deal. So prolonged stress without the normal and natural relaxation response causes sympathetic parasympathetic balance, creating a neurologic cascade of events, putting us in sympathetic survival syndrome, which is what I just described to you. So when we're in survival, our ability to heal, grow, learn, or flourish is greatly reduced. We're not going to heal and grow at that time, as I said. We're not in growth and repair. Oh, that's the other thing, right? Insomnia. That's like the biggest thing, right? So if you're in fight or flight, you're not going to be able to go to sleep. You just can't. Maybe you can catch a few Z's, but because out of sheer exhaustion, your body will let you sleep for a few hours, but it's not going to be that deep, restful level of sleep that allows that growth and repair to happen. You just don't get there. And so it's kind of crappy, I don't feel good when I wake up kind of sleep. And all of the wear and tear that happened to your body from the day before, which would normally have been repaired all night long, well, you start the next day as haggard and worn down as you were at the end of the day before. So this prolonged stress without the corresponding relaxation response causes a weakening of the heart and shrinkage of the brain. I've met a lot of people with that. Experts in our profession, we were actually, I mentioned Ted Carrick before. We were talking about concussions. He's been talking about this for a long time. There's some other ones as well. And now we have Dr. Porter, who's also, he's from a whole other profession. He's a PhD psychology guy, and he has this technology. And he actually, I think he worked actually as a hypnotherapist for many years as well. So, we're dealing with, he's dealing with the nervous system in a different way. And now we're able to merge it, which is what we're going to talk about. There are many ways to reestablish brain balance. Deep meditation, which I know you guys are fans of. Rhythmic breathing, walking, laughing, massage, and of course proper chiropractic care, which we're going to talk about that too. So again, 90% of stimulation and nutrition of the brain are coming from our this system, this balance and muscle and hold us up against gravity system, which is a lot. If you think about just taking a step, how many muscle contractions and actions have to happen in a coordinated way. I couldn't even tell you what they all are, and I certainly wouldn't want to be the guy having to coordinate it. And then you think about just existing, we have about 30 trillion cells that have to be working in harmony at all times in order for things to work. So with that being said, chiropractic works by we're bringing the physical, the structural, where the mental and the physical meet, we're bringing that into balance so that the body can function better. And it's kind of like we're hitting a reset button. So it allows the body to finally get out of that cycle, that fight or flight, and end up somewhere where it's supposed to be. And typically, no matter what a patient comes in for, one of the first things they tell me is that they sleep better. And for years I never thought to ask that. I'm starting to ask that on my patients now, how do you sleep at night? Because that's a pretty good thing. And it turns out most people don't sleep well. I didn't know. I sleep great. It's a hard time staying awake. So, but it's actually a big problem. But when that happens, no matter what they came in with, I know, even if they say, geez, I don't feel any better, but I slept better than I have in years. Well, I know that the healing is happening because it has to be that way. You have to be able to get into that parasympathetic relaxation place in order for the body to heal. There's no other way. So understanding that, like, to kind of bring it together, we are the sum total all of this that's happening at the same time. And as I said, these neural stress patterns that happen, they tend to have emotional triggers, right? So relaxing while you're facing a serious illness can be almost impossible for many people, right? I mean, that's a big problem. You can't be in fear and healing at the same time. That's like being in fight or flight and growth and repair at the same time. It's another way of saying the same thing. Many people have difficulty falling asleep, where they may awake in the middle of the night and then struggle to get back to sleep. Thoughts continually influence the brain to create either negative or positive states. So again, you know, talking about that whole stress thing, so where you go is going to be determined by what you're thinking about. And if you're thinking stressful stuff, you're stressed. And if you can change your thoughts and beliefs and behaviors, it's going to change. And your negative emotions, I mean, we know they feed cancer. You know, anybody will tell you that if you're reading Bernie Siegel's work, or people like him, they explain that really well. We need to give up harmful habits, right? So, like, if we know that, for example, if somebody has lung cancer and they know they need to stop smoking, right? That would be the obvious example. But we need to give up the habit of maybe some of these negative thoughts. We need to give up maybe some of these processed foods. Like, there's a lot of things about our lifestyle that we need to change, whether we have cancer or not. But of course, when you find yourself with in a bad place with cancer or any other disease, well, then it becomes much more imperative to make these changes. But it doesn't make it any easier. So that's where the mind fit comes in. The brain releases over 30,000 different neuron chemicals with a simple thought, which those could be our internal pharmacy, or they could be stress hormones like adrenaline, cortisol, things like that, which are going to have negative effects on our body. And the cool thing is, though, when we get things in order, the chemicals, the internal pharmacy that we have everything we need inside, and even better, it's there in the right dosage, in the right amount, at the right time, right? So unlike when you take a medicine, which, you know, I'm not saying you don't need to take medicine. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's never going to be as good as if you had the real stuff inside working the way it's supposed to, because nothing in our body is supposed to be the same all the time. Even our blood pressure is supposed to fluctuate during the day. That's normal. But people that are suppressing their blood pressure with medication, they don't get to have that experience as much, you know. Or if somebody has maybe Synthroid as an example, that's a synthetic thyroid hormone. Somebody has a thyroid problem and they have to replace it with Synthroid. Well, the Synthroid, you know, it only comes in that one pill and they take it at certain times of the day, whereas your thyroid hormones are normally fluctuating greatly throughout the day. So, so it's in the right dosage, and there's no side effects, because the side effects come from, well, a lot of things, but I mean, one of the big areas that side effects come from is the fact that there's supposed to be that neuromodulation, and you just can't do that very well with pills or medications. So, and the other thing, from a stress standpoint, the cancer diagnosis doesn't mean that work and bills and daily chores will go away. And these are things you have to put in perspective, because you have to focus on those healing thoughts. And this is an opportunity to thrive and not merely survive. If you're able to prioritize and you're able to take charge of your thoughts and your body, it's a chance to come out stronger than you went in. So there's also, I handed you a handout there. Chiropractic is featured at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and you know, which I think is excellent. That's in Philadelphia. The doctor there, let's see your handout. His name was on the tip of my tongue.
Rick Michaels, DC?
Dr. Sklar. Dr. Sklar is the head, the main chiropractor there. And you know, so they feature that as part of integrated holistic approach, because it is important. It helps to bring the body into balance and the mind into balance. And one other thing I want to mention is Dr. Perel, who did, he's got about 30 years worth of research in different things related to the health of the body. And so he has a test called serum thiol. Serum thiol is a blood test. Serum thiol is a measure of oxidative stress and DNA repair. So basically, it's a measure of how well the cells are adapting to stress and repairing themselves and replicating right? So every time you make a copy of a cell, kind of like when you make a copy of a copy, like back when we used to copy cassette tapes and stuff like that, like the other copies have the potential to not be as good. And the same thing happens with us. The DNA is the blueprint that they're copying when cells die off and are replaced. But each copy has the potential to be a little more tattered based on how oxidative stress is affecting it. And so when our serum thiol levels are high, you're getting a much better copy every time, right? And that's the disease in the aging process, essentially. Like all disease happens as the new cells aren't as good as the old cells, and then bad things happen. And that's the aging process as well. So what they found is that if you score on this test, if your score is below 90, then there's a 95% chance that you have something, be it cancer or heart disease, or it's not specific to a particular disease. It's just a measure of how efficiently your body's functioning, how well you are, if you will. So 90 or below, 95% chance of disease. If you're 120 or above, 95% chance no disease, and you're aging at the lowest possible rate. And that's where we want to be, right? That's good stuff. So what they found, he studied this for a long time. A lot of the early omega-3 studies came from here because they're located at the University of Lund, which is in Sweden. And they're sort of, what they use as their ideal group, where they came up with the number 120, was they found this small fishing village in Sweden that was pretty remote and isolated from everything else. The people lived a very simple lifestyle. They were fishermen and they lived off the land, and so they ate a lot of omega-3s, of course, and so they attributed a lot of it to that, and the fact that they had less stress than people that were living in a more modern, hectic world. And so that was their cutoff, and they found a lot of things over the years with this research. They found that kale, best food you can eat, omega-3, best supplement you can take. Tai Chi or yoga are the best exercise you could do because they oxygenate the body without stressing it too much. Things like that. Well, and it just so happened that one of the doctors that was working on this project, his home in the United States, he lived next door to a chiropractor named Joe Felicia. Joe Felicia was a pretty amazing guy. He was responsible for a lot of, the way we practice, actually. I mean, I met him before he died. He died a few years ago. And he was a much older gentleman when I met him, and he couldn't tell. Like, he was a vibrant guy. So he's living next door to this guy, and of course he's telling him all about chiropractic, because that's what chiropractors do. And the guy said, well, if what you're saying is true, I got a test for you. And so Joe Felicia sent a couple of his colleagues up to Sweden to have this test done. At the time, just to do one of these tests was thousands of dollars, and there was only one place in the world you could do it. And but nobody disputes this test. This test has been around for 30 years, and it's well documented that this measurement is accurate. And so they tested these two chiropractors, and literally the researchers came running down the hall and knocked on the door and barged in and said, we've never seen levels this high. They were in the 130s, and this is amazing. And tell us about it. And they told them all about it. And so then they started testing their patients, and they've been doing this for a few years now. It's on a small scale, but the test is now more available, and a lot of people are actually offering it in their offices, and we're going to gather more data. But basically what they found was that the chiropractic patients, no matter where they started, no matter how sick they were, how low their score was when they started, they rapidly increased in their chiropractic care faster than anything else that they had experienced before. And then with 2 to 3 years of regular care, and regular means basically weekly adjustment, they get into that 120 or above range no matter where they started, and across the board. And they're still studying it, but I mean, so far, many years later, it hasn't seemed to plateau for the people they're following. It doesn't rise as quickly. The initial gains are very quick in the first few months of care, but later, the people that stay in more on a wellness program, it continues to climb. And so this is pretty exciting, and we're happy to see it, because it's, as far as I'm concerned, a holy grail for us as far as being able to validate what I'm telling you right now. But it's pretty exciting. And as far as the MindFit goes, to tie that in, and I know you want to try it, right? So
I'm dying to try it.
Okay, we can make that happen. But basically, I'm excited about it because if you caught what I was saying, like, it's all about bringing the nervous system into balance, and chiropractic is very good at that. But there's still 70% up here that I can't even get to, right? And so it's and for years I've wished because people come in and they say crazy things, and they say things that are like keeping them where they're at, and it's just, and you want to, you know, but I'm not a therapist, like what do I do with that, you know? I mean, but you could, it's very obvious when you have, when I first encounter a patient, I mean, based on the words that they choose and the demeanor that they have and the state that they're in, you know, I could tell the ones that are going to respond really well to the ones that are going to struggle, and it's because of this. And I'm not the only one who's observed this, and in fact, it's well documented. You know, they've found that you know, there's a higher correlation. I mean, just taking back pain for example, which if you're catching where I'm going with this, like back pain is kind of boring for me. Like it's, you know, it's that's the black coffee at Starbucks. That's, you know, that's they found that people who had like low life satisfaction, like on surveys, job satisfaction, etc., higher incidence of back pain, and with the same MRI findings as somebody else who had a high job satisfaction rating who never had pain. You see what I mean? So there is a direct correlation between our feelings, our emotions, how we feel about ourselves, and all that, and how we experience even things like back pain and other, you know, aches and pains and simple stuff like that. So certainly, when you're talking about cancer and things that other more serious things that people struggle with, the same rules apply. It doesn't change. It's just a matter of like how these things express themselves, you know. So to be able to have something where you can work with somebody's well-being with their mind to help them overcome some limiting beliefs, help them overcome the fear that's involved with their diagnosis, or with, you know, maybe there's other fear in their life that they need to address that got them where they are. Emotions and all these things can help to really effectively break some of those patterns that people are stuck in, and it's pretty amazing. I don't know how else to describe it, but basically we have different levels of brain activity that are normal for us, and we have beta, theta, alpha, and delta, and delta would be like the deepest level of sleep, and alpha and theta are more like, you know, the precursors to that, like the relaxed sort of, you know, I'm just hanging out in a relaxed kind of carefree state. And then you have beta, which is the, all right, I got to get this done and do this, and I got to go here, and I got to do this, and I got to say this, and don't, you know, better not say that, and all of that. And what happens is, just like the other things I described, we get stuck in beta, and we don't get in those other places very well. And theta is actually where it's at. And small children are in theta like most of the time. And that's why they have photographic memories. That's why they don't miss anything, right? You wish they would sometimes, but they don't. They pick up everything they mimic because they're like little sponges, right? That's the best time as far as learning language goes. Like, you know, little kids can learn multiple languages. They grow up in households where maybe they have immigrant relatives or whatever, and they, you know, they go back and forth to English and whatever, any other language, like with no problem. And it's a great place to be. They get into school, and now there's a schedule, there's assignments, there's these things like that, and they will start to switch into beta. And this is normal. This is good. It's a normal adaptation. That's what it's for. But the problem is many of us get stuck there. And the more stressed we are, the harder it is to get out of that. And the kids that don't go there very well, the kids that stay in theta, well, those are the kids that they medicate, right? They're the ones that they don't, you know, they're not on the same programs as everybody else. They're doing their own thing, and you know, looking out the window and thinking about other stuff than maybe what they should be at that moment. And so, you know, they don't know what to do with those kids. And of course, our educational system is such that, you know, they're getting rid of things like art and music and recess and gym and, you know, and sports, and, you know, they will sacrifice those things in favor of like other stuff where, you know, because they're worried about test scores and where their school ranks and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is those other things are very important to the neurological development of human beings, and so you know, we're missing a lot of that. But at any rate, the theta is where people go when they meditate, but not everybody has an easy time getting there. I mean, you guys teach people to meditate, so I know you know that a lot of people will probably tell you, right, that they can't get their mind clear, and they're just all kinds of just programs running in there, and they can't get quiet in their mind. It may take somebody months or even years to really learn how to do that, but this technology will get you into theta. It'll take any human there in 10 minutes or less, and the average session is 20 to 30 minutes. So that's the thing. It gets you into theta, so you get this relaxation response, which is critical because for all these reasons that I explained, why we have to have that downtime that we're not, our body doesn't allow us to have. And then when you're there, theta also happens to be the gateway to the subconscious, which is why I mentioned kids are in theta most of the time. Well, that's why as adults, many times we struggle with beliefs or fears or emotions, or things that are coming from our subconscious that we just sucked in there when we were kids. For some reason we clung to it. A lot of times we don't even know what it is, right? I mean, it's just something we don't know why we find ourselves in the same kind of relationships over and over again, or we have the same money problems no matter how much money somebody gives us, or we have the same health problems over and over again, or whatever it is. Well, it's because that subconscious loop is running there. We may or may not be aware of it, but that's where all this stuff is, right? And so when somebody's in theta, you have to be very careful about the things that go in there, because most people, if you just leave them, if you put them in theta state and leave them to their own devices, they're thinking about all the things they don't want. It's I guess human nature, right? So I don't want cancer. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want, right? And what happens is the subconscious doesn't know about negatives. It just hears fat, sick, cancer, debt, and it says, okay, I got it. Well, we'll make sure that it stays just like that. And so you stay stuck in your stuff. And so with these relaxation sessions, Dr. Porter, you can choose different things that you want to work on. Whether we have chronic pain, we have one for cancer, we have one for weight loss. The weight loss one is the most popular one, which insomnia. And the interesting thing about insomnia, like all the other things, weight loss, I have 52 weeks worth of material if I want to do weight loss programs with people. Insomnia, there's only 5 weeks worth. He says he's never had anybody take more than 5 weeks to sleep through the night. And he says most people, after one session on this, will have the best night's sleep they ever had.
It's funny you're saying that, because on the cancer program I picked 3, and one of them was rejuvenating sleep.
Yeah.
And I think after 2 weeks I stopped because it was like, I just started sleeping so much.
Right, got that, yeah. And it doesn't take long. So that is a...
I've been awake since 4:30.
Oh no. But here's the cool thing, is like no matter which of these programs you choose, the response that it has in your body, your endorphin levels elevate. I think it's 22 or 25%. I don't have the numbers, but they've studied it in labs and everything. Endorphins elevate, serotonin elevates. That's the happy, feel-good hormone, and your cortisol levels decrease when you're in theta state. And so no matter which of the programs you're doing, you will sleep better. Your body will heal better. You'll be more relaxed. And it's just a matter of what kind of suggestions you want to put in there when you're in that place. And so if you can tailor it to what you're doing. But the important thing is that you do have that, because you don't want to, otherwise you'll be thinking about what you don't want, and we already do that, right? You keep thinking the same thoughts. You can open that door to subconscious and shove more of the same crap in there. You're going to get the same crap back, right? So we want to put some new stuff in there. And that's how it works, and it works fabulously. We've been doing this weight loss program in the office with this, and we have 13 people right now that are going through this, and all of them are dropping, all except for one who hasn't. She paid me and then hasn't been back, and so I have to call her. I keep forgetting to call her. But the people that are coming into the program, they come twice a week and they do these sessions, and we're working with them on alkalizing their diets, which is good for everyone. I have actually 2 people. I have one gentleman with several chronic disorders. One of them is HIV, so he's got a whole bunch going on, but he's not overweight. But he came actually to listen to my presentation I did on it for a friend, and his friend never came, and he said, I want this because I understand that this is good for me. He's coming in, he's getting adjusted, he's doing the sessions, and he's losing weight too, and he's mad about it. He's like, I didn't come here to lose weight, but he drops a couple pounds every time we weigh him. So, but we're alkalizing him. So most people are acidic. Denise talked about that already. The average person that we've tested in the office is about a 6, and they should be about 7.2 on the pH scale, which should be more balanced, slightly alkaline. But 6 is a long way from a 7. It's not easy to get there necessarily unless you make a conscious effort to change it. So we teach them about alkalizing diets. We teach them about how stress affects weight gain, and basically that's the deal, is when you're all amped up on adrenaline and cortisol all the time, your body naturally stores fat. And so this obesity epidemic that we're seeing, which is huge, 30% of the population is obese, 60% is overweight or more, and those numbers are going up all the time. We're seeing it in children now. Like, right when I was a kid, there was like one fat kid in class, and now they all are. And so it's not just that their diets suck. That's just part of it. But part of it is that because they're amped up on stress hormones, you crave fats and sugars and salts and all those things, and that's what everybody's happy to sell us, right? So it's called conditioned hypereating, and you know that it's because of stress. And so by helping them de-stress and helping them do this, and they don't even know why it's happening. Like, they come in and tell me, you know, I used to drink 7 cups of coffee a day, and I stopped. Like, all at once. I didn't expect that. Like, I didn't tell her not to drink coffee. She said, yeah, I don't want it anymore. But I'm drinking half my body weight in ounces of water, or liters of water, right? And I hate water. I never used to drink water. Now I'm doing it. And then we got another guy who's saying that you know, they're bringing Krispy Kremes to where he works all the time. It's his favorite thing. He works in a body shop, and he says it's twice it's happened to him. The guy drops him off, hands him to him. He's got to walk around the garage, pass them out to the guys. It's his favorite thing. He said he don't want one. He says, so I don't know what it is. This isn't working. But every time he comes in, he's got his belt cinched tighter. It's fantastic. I have 2 people that are going on. They're type 2 diabetics that their doctors are taking them down on their medications and tell them if the numbers keep dropping like they're dropping, they'll be off their medications in a few weeks. So it's amazing. And every single one of these people is, except for the one who's not doing it, she didn't like the taste of the shakes I told her to drink. And so I have to call her and, you know, recommend something different or whatever. But for the other 12 people that are doing it, they're all losing weight like crazy and having these great results, and every single one of them says it's easy. They all say it's easy. I don't know. It just feels better. Yes.
Well, I know you're dealing mostly with weight loss, but there's so many different programs, and I did the cancer one, and you know, I think I started it about 6 weeks ago. I don't even remember, but you know, you go to the oncology office, and it's all fear. It's all, you know, like, oh my God, it's dire, and you know, they really try to instill a lot of fear. And so listening to those tapes, it just really gave me so much more confidence, and like, yeah, my body has the ability to heal. I totally have that in me. And so I really feel like they've been so beneficial. My sleep got better, and I think people who have cancer or sickness or anything they want to improve, this is such a great thing. They even have a golf program, how to make your golf game better, and then just even with a wealth consciousness one.
Yeah, how about that?
Well, like you had done it just one day, and the next day.
All of a sudden we're coming into money all over the place.
The next day, yeah, you got like a huge sum of money from, you know, and then.
Hook me up with that one.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you. And then out of the blue, we get like this $1,200, you know, little place
gift.
To just out of the blue. So, you know, so we're doing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I mean, money is a great example. I mean, people don't necessarily, like, people see that on the list of things they can choose from. They're like, well, gosh, you know.
Let's do this one.
But people don't realize how much. I mean, you know, I mean, money's just money, right? I mean, people have all kinds of bad feelings about it, and that's part of the problem. You know, money can't buy happiness. You know, and rich people are evil, or you know, whatever it is, or dishonest, right? And so people have weird hang-ups about money, and we all do. And it's the same hang-ups that our parents had, and you find yourself, you become a grown man, and you're having same arguments with your spouse about money that you heard your parents have, and you don't even remember your parents having, but they had it, right? And we all do it, and it's just a good example. And so if you could change some of your thoughts about it, well, all of a sudden money's not an obstacle anymore. Instead of being something that's holding you back, it's just something that allows you to just do what you have to do. And you know, but it's just one of those things. And there's so many. That's just one example, right? I mean, there's so many things like that we do to ourselves. But the subconscious, you know, doesn't. You know, the subconscious is, you know, I don't want to be broke. Broke, got it. I don't want to be fat, got it. I don't want to be sick anymore. Sick, got it. And you know, we do that to ourselves all the time. So having this in the toolbox to help stressed people, right? So if I didn't make it clear, you know, I can summarize and be done now. The way I see my role in health is, and the way frankly, chiropractic got on the map in the first place, and it's kind of taken some detours along the way, but is to help people better adapt to stress. Does that make sense? And so we all have stress, and we have more now than we've ever had in our high-tech world, and we don't get any downtime, and we have, you know, all these issues and things and what have you. And if your body's adapting to that stress, you're thriving, right? That's the thing. But as your body starts to not be able to adapt, well, then that's when the stress starts to kill you. So the stress alone usually isn't enough to do you in. It has to do with how your body handles it. And when I say your body, I mean your mind and your body. And so anything we can do to help bring you back into balance, put you in a better place to handle it. So if you think about an interesting analogy, if you think of the spine even as a breaker box, right? So this is really dumbing it down, right? You open your breaker box in the basement of the garage, right? And you see all those breakers in there. Well, if you keep overloading that system, the breakers trip, right? And they do that because it prevents things from going bad, you know, somewhere else, fires and appliances going haywire and whatever, right? So let's say you trip the breaker, you stress the system, the breaker trips to your refrigerator, right? And you don't know that it happened, but you know, something stinks. What's that smell, right? So you could go and you could open the refrigerator and you could, you know, put something in there to, you know, put some perfume or something in there to make it smell better, right? It's taking pills is my analogy, if you're getting that, right? You're covering up the symptoms, right? Or you could be a little more aggressive. You could clean it all out, put some new stuff in there, close the door, right? The problem is still there. The problem won't be fixed until you can turn that power back on, right? Where this analogy breaks down is, if you're still stressed, right, that breaker is going to keep tripping. That's what it's made to do, right? But where the reason it breaks down is because, unlike the electrical system in our house, our bodies were alive, and our nervous systems are always trying to adapt and to learn and to improve. And so, if we, you know, in the garage, we'll keep resetting that breaker so we can keep the refrigerator on, but it's going to keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. And the body, eventually, the body will learn how to better handle that stress so that it doesn't blow out anymore. Right? And so if we can do things to help bring the body into balance, that breaker isn't going to be a constant problem anymore. So that's the difference. So that's all I have to say, unless there's specific questions you want me to answer.
I just wanted to say that you had brought 2 of your MindFit things, and I brought ours. So if you guys want to try it, you can see which program you want to listen
I would
to.
like to try it.
So, all right.
All right.
So do
It's
you
hard
want
to talk about something you never tried, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
It's
it.
like trying to explain air to a fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the one day I came here, I was like a wreck. I was